Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyersportsbetting.com. Today is July the 22nd, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's break with the grid. In the World Boxing Super Series at Super Middleweight, I'm expecting a lot of upsets. I mean, many. Right? This is the kind of thing where you might place some bets and be unable to discuss them in public because people might laugh at you. Now let's be clear here. The top 3 seeds at 168 pounds in this tournament are, and keep in mind, each of these guys got an opportunity to pick their opponents. Right? The top 3 seeds are George Groves, Callum Smith, and Chris Eubank Jr. Right? Those are your top 3 seeds. Now, we're gamblers here. Let's gamble a little bit. From this seed, the most talented fighter in this tournament is Braehmer, right? None of the top 3 seeds. It's Braehmer. Let's talk about it. Now let me say this. Braehmer has a few strikes against him. There's no question about it. Right? The first is age. Just be aware of the risk involved. He's 38 years old. Right? The next is weight. Braehmer, of course, was the champion at 175 pounds. Let's revisit that for a moment. Braehmer was beating, in his last fight, Nathan Cleverly. Right? Was beating him. Then, of course, had an elbow issue. Flare up during the fight. Had to quit in the fight. Lost his title in a fight in which he was winning. I would argue it's not Nathan Cleverly that beat Braehmer. It was Braehmer's elbow that beat Braehmer. Right? Braehmer had to retire. So here he is now, right, losing weight to fight in this tournament. He hasn't fought at 168 pounds, folks, since 2007. Right? So not only is he an old man compared to the ages of the other guys, but he's the guy who is visiting other people's weight class. And of course, I will say, in history, you'll find that older fighters who come up with the big idea of losing weight to fight guys at a lower weight class almost always run into problems. Right? I'll say, I normally don't take guys who decide, hey, I'm going to lose weight to fight in a lower weight class. Mike Perez, the former heavyweight, who's now fighting in the WBSS cruiserweight tournament, I'm staying away from him for that reason. But here, I'm going to make an exception, because I think Braehmer's skill level dwarfs the skill level of some of these other guys, and yes, that includes unbeaten Callum Smith. Also, of course, in addition to age and weight, you're dealing with the fact that Braehmer is coming off of an injury. Right? It's a problem. Right? When a guy has elbow problems, people with tennis elbow know this. Right? You're just one bad swing away from having that elbow problem flare up. It's like having a back problem. If you've ever had one and then you say, oh, I've recovered, then you hit the basketball court, that first tweak, you know what's going to happen. Right? There is the possibility that Braehmer with an elbow problem, and it's hard not to use your elbows in a boxing match, right? Where you're throwing punches and you're blocking shots. There is a possibility that Braehmer's elbow problem resurfaces. At 38 years old, quite frankly, his body might be breaking down. But make no mistake, compared to the other guys in this tournament, right? Guys like George Groves, who in my opinion should be doing better in his career than he's doing, given his skill set, right? Guys like Callum Smith, who, let's be real here, really hasn't fought anyone, right? Given some of the other guys in this tournament, I just don't see how anybody else in the tournament has the skills that Braehmer has. In other words, if Braehmer shows up as Jürgen Braehmer, I don't care that he's the 4th seed or whatever. We're not going by the seeds. We're going by the talent level. If Braehmer brings his A game, in my opinion, it's class dismissed. It's game over. Right? If Braehmer shows up and he's still Jürgen Braehmer, this is the guy I want my money on. Now, if the casino's going to give me great odds for it, if the casino's going to tell me he's the 4th seed, hey, more beer for me. Right? Because this is the guy who has the skill set. Understand, we're talking about a guy who, again, light heavyweight champion, several successful defenses. Nobody in this tournament has fought the level of competition that Braehmer has fought. If you followed Braehmer's career, you know he was a gifted amateur. You're aware of the fact that Braehmer is one of the bad boys of boxing. At least he used to be. Some guys pretend to be gangsters. Other guys are gangsters. Braehmer went through a period in his life where he was confused, misled, whatever you want to say. But this guy had serious problems outside the ring. Real problems outside the ring. Somehow the guy only has 3 professional losses, folks. Understand, too, he's a very shrewd southpaw. Very shrewd southpaw. With underrated power. More importantly, it's my belief that at the highest levels of the sport of boxing, it comes down to spacing and angles. This guy knows how to play the spacing and angles. He's excellent at slipping body shots, right? He keeps you guessing on what he's throwing. He doesn't come in the ring with some, A-plus punch and, some lesser supporting system that's really just geared to deliver the A-plus punch. No, this guy comes in with strategy. He's two-handed. He knows what he's doing. He has an innate understanding of the sweet science. I think if you're looking for a dark horse in this tournament, I believe this is the guy. Now, his first opponent is fascinating. Robert Brandt. And let me just say, this is a guy, let me look through my notes here. This is a guy who's very dangerous, right? Doesn't have the big name, but he has a very nice jab. He's not afraid to be on his front foot. In other words, this guy is a boxer puncher, right? Brandt is excellent at spacing. Now, the way this would have played out is if Brandt was fighting anybody other than Jürgen Braehmer, right? I might pick Brandt. Brandt's a talent, folks. The problem is, this is just the way it played out. He happens to be facing Jürgen Braehmer, right? So for me, I'm taking Braehmer over Robert Brandt. But if Brandt pulls the upset here, he's a live underdog whoever he faces in the second round. Let me also point out, too, that while many may not have heard of Brandt, understand, he won the U.S. National Championship in 2009. He won the National Golden Gloves in 2010. I know he hasn't been fighting a lot of known fighters, but this is a guy who's been an elite fighter for a long time. He's unbeaten. Now, let me be clear here. I'm taking Braehmer over Brandt in the first round. But if I'm wrong, if Brandt wins the fight, keep an eye on him. Right? Whoever he fights in the second round. You have some more known fighters in this tournament. I'm not sure if you have better fighters in this tournament. Let me also pick another dark horse. I know Chris Eubank Jr. just beat Arthur Abraham. Right? Good for him. Here's the problem. I like his opponent over him. Right? I like Yildirim. I know I'm butchering names here. I apologize. Why don't we just call him by his nickname, Mr. Robot? Right? This guy is front foot heavy. This guy can get inside. This is one of those few guys who might be able to beat Chris Eubank in a phone booth. Now here again, I would have preferred for this guy to have fought someone like Callum Smith, who I think this guy beats. Right? Some guy who's 6'3", tall, who wouldn't know what to do with a smaller guy who's better on the inside than him. Right? He didn't get the Callum Smith matchup. He got the Eubank matchup. Now my concern here is that Eubank throws one of boxing's best uppercuts. He does. Right? My concern is that Yildirim has a rabbit ears defense. Right? He has his hands like this. Right? Not like Archie Moore of Evander Holyfield with a arm bar here to stop uppercuts. Right? So there is a possibility if this guy comes in like this, gets hit with some uppercuts. But let me say this. This guy is one of the most mentally tough prospects I've come across. He goes to Mexico. He beats Marco Antonio Parabén. Right? There hardly anybody in the arena rooting for Yildirim. He dominated that fight. Dominated it. Even knocks down Parabén, who I consider to be underrated. Right? This is a guy who throws short punches. Not a big wind-up. He knows how to get low. Right? He's very tough at 5'11". I don't think Eubank is prepared for him. I really don't. Arthur Abraham goes 12 rounds. I thought Arthur Abraham was a live dog against Eubank. I consider this guy to be even more serious competition than Arthur Abraham. Let me say this too. He's devastating to the body. He's going to get underneath. He's going to get underneath Eubank. He's going to start going to Eubank's body. I think this guy is an upset waiting to happen. Now, I'll agree. He's front foot heavy. He doesn't have that great of a back foot game. I believe against a superior talent than Eubank, someone like Braehmer, this guy would have problems. Right? But again, I think against Eubank, he'll be fine. I like Yavni Yildirim over Chris Eubank in the first round. I like Jürgen Braehmer over Rob Brandt in the first round. I don't see a reason why, quite frankly. Yildirim, Brandt, and Braehmer, right, can't beat any of the top 3 seeds. Right? Eubank, George Groves, and Callum Smith. Expect upsets. This is going to be one of those tournaments where you're going to be watching the tournament and it's going to be a coming out party. for guys who you might not have heard of. Keep a big eye on Yavni Yildirim. I'm telling you, this guy, mentally tough, great on his front foot, moves too well for Eubank to back away from him the way he backed away from Arthur Abraham. This is a guy with foot speed. Let me also say too, he can hide his upper body. He understands how to bend at the waist, get an elbow out to make it hard for you to find his rib cage. Since he's shorter than most of the guys in this tournament, good luck trying to prevent him from hitting your body, right? Yildirim is a good dark horse to keep an eye on. So, if you get anything from this video, just know that Jürgen Braehmer should be on the short list of the boxers with a realistic chance of winning the tournament. I don't care that he's a 4th seed. To me, he's the most skilled guy in the tournament. I'll concede. Boxing's a young man's game, and 38 doesn't make you a spring chicken. I'll concede that. I'll concede he's coming off of an injury, right? But in my opinion, he just knows the sport better than Groves and Callum Smith, the bigger name guys, right? Just know that Rob Brand really should have been one of the higher seeds in this tournament. Unfortunately for him, he might be facing the best in the tournament in the first round. And just know that Yavni Yildirim, underrated. In my opinion, he beats Chris Eubank. That's how I see it. I know these views are from left field. That's all right. We're not afraid to put left field views here on tape and run with them here on this site, right? This is the risk-taking part of the internet. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. If you've fallen in love with George Groves, Chris Eubank, Callum Smith, if you feel that one of the top 3 seeds is going to take this, if you feel that there's some other storyline that we're overlooking, then I hope you leave those comments in the comment section to this video. Let me also applaud the people who put together the WBSS, right? I consider the Cruiserweight edition to be outstanding. How they got Usyk and Briedis in the same tournament, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Looking at this super middleweight tournament, right? Since it's missing James DeGale, since it's missing Gilberto Ramirez, right? It's not the same as the Cruiserweight tournament, but let's just say I feel the public's expectations might be a bit different than the actual talent levels of the fighters. Also, it is interesting that Braehmer, a light heavyweight, wanted to be in one of these tournaments so badly, he's losing 7 pounds to be in the super middleweight tournament, right? Bravo. The big winner, of course, is going to be us, the fans, right? This is must-see boxing. Anyway, let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.